Alright, well let's hop right into this $1 beer. We say $1 because we bought a kit from our local brew store. There are a lot of different types of these. This is just the one we got. And it was about $50 and it makes about 50 bottles of beer. So that's our $1 beer. So we're just going to go through this box and see what's inside. There's some yeast, some hops, some malt, everything you need except for water and a stove and obviously your vessels to brew in. There's even labels and sugar and everything. It's all in here. It's great. Super, super easy. Just buy the box and you're good to go. And this is a pumpkin spice porter. So you're going to start with some water.
Texas.
And make sure that you sanitize anything that touches the beer during this process. Your pots, your spoons, your sieves, your ladles, anything that touches the beer has to be sanitized. We use Sanistar, but just check with your local brew store. They have these solutions that you can totally use. So we're going to boil up some water. I think this is about 3 gallons. We'll add some more water to make the total of 5 gallons later. Each beer is different, so follow the temps and instructions in your box. Next, we're going to put our wheat, berries, and crushed grains into a sock, essentially. It's like a large tea bag, so that we can get all of this steeped in the beer or in the water and get our flavorings all into the water and then be able to pull all that grain out so it doesn't get gooey and slimy and gross. This one has a couple types of grains in it. Lots of beers have multiple grains, and each beer, depending on what kind of beer it is, has different grains and different roasts and all sort of things. So we're going to let that boil for the allotted amount of time. I think it was about 45 minutes. And then you're going to pull it out. And when you pull out your giant tea bag of grains, you want to let it drip out thoroughly, but you do not want to squeeze, because if you squeeze, you could squeeze out some of those gooey bits like starches or glutens, and you definitely don't want that stuff in your beer. It'll make it cloudy or goopy and better without it. So just let it drip thoroughly and then set that aside. These grains, this mash is totally great for compost. Just toss it in your compost bin or in your garden. It'll break down really fast on its own. And you can tell it all swelled up and absorbed that water and hopefully left behind lots of good flavor. And next we're going to add some malt. So malt is very molasses-like. It's a sugar extract from grain. There's a whole process to it. Not going to go into that here, but it's really thick and syrupy and very much does taste and feel like molasses, but just a little bit breadier, more wheaty. And then this pack also came with some maltodextrin, which is just more sugars for those yeasts to eat and get all alcohol-y for us. Woohoo! And then we're also going to add in our hops. This contributes to the bitter flavor significantly, and if you like a good IPA, you like hops. If not, then it's hops that you don't like so much. That's not 100% true, but that's 100% my opinion. I am not a huge fan of very, very hoppy beers. So you want to cool this beer down as fast as possible. We had it in a sink with ice and we got it cooled down as fast as possible. And then we transferred it to our fermenting bucket. So this is just food-safe plastic bucket with a hole of a certain size in the top, something you can seal but still vent properly. And you can see here we're going ahead to add the rest of that water so that we get the full 5 gallons of beer. And we're looking for a certain SG, which is specific gravity, that tells us how much sugar to water we have in our beer. We want it to be nice and sweet so that there's enough sugar for the yeast to eat, but not so sweet that it kills the yeast off. So we let that mix in, and then we also add in our yeast, which came in a packet. It is not just baker's yeast, it's special brew yeast for specific types of beer. Again, different yeasts make different beers. We're going to mix that in and let it do its primary fermentation for about 1 week. Once 1 week hit, all those spices and the hops have settled to the bottom, and we are able to siphon out the liquid without all of the gunky stuff into a separate carboy, which will be the vessel where it continues to ferment for a couple more weeks. Again, we're going to throw a fermentation lock on this so that nothing can get in, but air can still get out. Look at all that nasty stuff left behind. After 3 more weeks, refer to your instructions again. The beer has reached its proper specific gravity, which means that we have the proper amount of alcohol in there that we are looking for. The yeast has eaten the sugar and we're ready to bottle. So with bottling, we're actually going to add just a little bit more sugar so that we get a nice fizzy beer. We add a bit of sugar just to give a yeast the final boost so that it expands in the bottle, carbonates, and makes a nice fizzy beer for us. And again, we're sanitizing absolutely everything: bottle caps, bottles, spoons, tubes, everything gets sanitized before we start to fill the bottles. So again, we're filling up about 50 bottles here, give or take, because we are filling a half gallon and a couple of larger bombers. But about 50 standard bottles of beer is what we got out of this $50 box. And thank God for bottling wands, because this is a pain without them. It's a nice little valve on the end of a tube that stops when you pull the tube out. And then again, we've got to come through and cap all of those bottles, make sure they're nice and sealed up so that they can properly carbonate and be sealed so that they'll last for the rest of the year. This is quite a process, very long, but it's actually kind of fun and rather satisfying to get those bottle caps on there nicely. Note, though, definitely do not use bottles that have threads. So if you have a twist-off beer, don't use those to recap. They're a little hard and they can break. And then we're just going to throw on all of these handy labels that we got in this box, and there we are. 50 bottles of beer on the wall. What do you think?
It's not too bad. I'm honestly not a huge dark beer person, but I don't mind this one too much. It's a little bit hoppy, and it's got a really good flavor. The pumpkin and the spices are definitely coming through.
Yeah. And it is fizzing a little bit. It probably could use another week in the fermenting locations. Another week to give it full fizzification.
Ooh, yeah.
That's not
it's
a great
not very
head.
fizzy at all.
But that's okay for dark beer, right? Let us know what you think. And if you try this at home, as always, tag us, like and subscribe, comment below your thoughts and your tips and tricks if you have them. And we'll see y'all next time.
Cheers!